and welcome to another episode of The Shark Scale. Today's movie's got a bit of a more generic title. It's Frenzy. Yeah, Frenzy, released in 2018 on TV as part of Sci-Fi's 2018 Shark Week. Frenzy is, well, it's an interesting kind of shark movie as, you know what, actually, though? You know what? Let's not spoil it right here. Let's just get right in to the movie.
So Frenzy stars basically a bunch of early adults, mid-20s bloggers. They go and do adventures and have fun and stuff and all that, and they blog it on YouTube. They have a bunch of subscribers and all that stuff I wish I had. Well, the group of them are going to this island off Asia, I think they said, in the Red Sea, that is completely deserted and dangerous. And they're blogging it to show the world they're having a great time and all that stuff. The group gets into a plane to fly to said Cove Island area when the plane basically just falls apart in the air. It just falls apart and they crash into the water. Basically, one of the two ladies survive, or, well, one of the couple ladies survive in the group, and it's up to them to basically get help in the middle of nowhere and get the hell away because three frenzied sharks, like really hungry sharks, show up and start going on a killing spree. The plot is pretty contrived, in all honesty, and I was getting some major The Shallows vibes from it, and this movie came out well after it, so it probably took some inspiration. The whole GoPro camera thing was also really selling that. The plot is generic, really, and nothing you haven't seen before, especially if you're a sharkaholic like me. It serves more as a way to get the characters in the water so the sharks can get them. And the way the movie plays out is exactly how you would expect. There's nothing shocking here or surprising. It didn't do a single thing to surprise me, really, in that aspect. It wasn't absolutely completely predictable, but it wasn't far off that. Throughout the movie, they do have a lot of flashbacks, and I gotta say, these are actually some pretty good ways to establish character, so there's that at least. And the main woman was actually really likable. She was a good character, I thought. In the end, it was at its best serviceable, and at its worst just generic. In terms of how often the sharks are on screen, I gotta say it's actually really frequently. After the first couple scenes, the sharks are in almost every single scene in the movie. Like, it was actually really good when it came to screen time. They're in almost every scene of the movie, minus the flashbacks, obviously. I was quite impressed with how frequent they were on screen, so I'm gonna give some props there and say that they certainly are in the movie a lot. And it's usually the three of them. It's not just like one, maybe two. No, it's usually all three of them hunting in like a pack. These sharks are freaking hungry and are just relentless. It's something else, really. It's almost to the point of parody to an extent with how relentless they are. They just never let up the entire movie. Like, even after they eat, they just want more and more and more immediately. Like, I'm pretty sure that's not how sharks are, but they just wanted to kill. And when it comes to that, they kills themselves. I have to say they're not that great in this movie. There is a decent number of kills, don't get me wrong. It's more than one hand's worth, so that's good, but none of them stand out at all. They're all quite generic, and there was nothing shocking in the slightest. It was all stock, standard kills here. They were all from the water, and the sharks never do anything crazy, like even jump. Like, there's just nothing exciting here. They just get him in the water. So I was disappointed on that end. I was hoping there would be maybe like one or two crazy ones. I mean, the movie's called Frenzy, but that's not the case. At least the sharks, the way they died, were pretty crazy, or at least different enough from the norm. They didn't just get shot. But that's not what we have here. The general killing was not the most exciting. The CGI of the sharks themselves, they were decent enough. I'm not going to come out and say they were great or even awesome, but it looked pretty standard for 2018 B-movie sharks. I mean, there really just isn't much to comment on when it comes to them. They look decent enough, they animate well, and they seem big. At least they're moving through the water, like, that looks good, and they got the correct amount of frames. I'm just really having a hard time finding something to say about these sharks because it's just serviceable. It wasn't anything like amazing or out of this world. It wasn't anything you haven't seen before. It was just good. That was it. The other special effects in this movie are not good. For instance, the plane at the beginning just looks terrible. It looks like 2010 CGI. It looks really poor here. The one or two other special effects that show up in the movie are not great either. But I mean, at least the sets were good, but it's just water. But in general, the effects for the movie were just alright. The acting, I'm gonna actually have to say though, it was surprisingly good. I thought it was actually going to be the really standard crummy acting, but I really didn't get that from this movie. I thought it actually had good acting from the main character. Everyone else in the movie was pretty average to bad, leaning more on the bad side. But the main character, like I said, I think she was actually good. She conveys emotion very well to get her point across, and you really feel for her to an extent. She's, of course, nowhere near as good as, say, the Shallows main character, but she does get her point across. The way her character builds up throughout the movie, I thought was a decent character arc, and it was something I wasn't expecting from this movie at all. I think she was actually quite good. She was definitely like the only really good actor. Unfortunately, the supporting cast members were really there. They just were there. I mean, they weren't really up to snuff with anything compared to her. They just kind of felt like douchebags, one of them, and they just, honestly, if I could put it in one sentence, they felt like supporting characters. They really did. They really just did not bring their A game, and it just wasn't anywhere near as good as the main character. But, I mean, they don't get anywhere near as much screen time as the main character, obviously, so I guess it evens out. Overall, I'm going to just end it here and say that the acting was actually good. In conclusion, this movie isn't amazing, but it's not bad. It's a bit generic and has some really generic elements to it, such as the plot, the kills, and the CGI, but I think the acting and the main character kind of save it from being an overall generic movie. I think the ending is actually decently conclusive as well. I didn't hate the movie and wasn't bored watching it. I did feel pretty bad for the main character and how relentless the sharks are, so it evoked, I guess, a little emotion from me. But really, this movie has an incredibly generic feeling. But in conclusion, I still think it's a good movie. It's not going to be one of the best shark movies you've ever seen. It's not even going to be a shark movie you probably remember in a month's time. But it was still good for what it was. This movie's actually been uploaded in its entirety already to YouTube, so I'll put a link in the description if you're at all curious about the movie. If you're curious and what you've seen in this review has interested you at all, I'd say you should probably just check it out. It's free. But with all that said, on the shark scale, I'm going to have to give this one a solid 3 out of 5. It's an average shark flick. Some good and some bad with it. Could do a lot worse, could do a lot better. Actually, you could do way, way, way worse for sure. But that's the shark scale for you. If you liked what you saw, subscribing, liking, commenting, tell me I suck. I got a Twitter to follow as well. I mean, all of that would be really awesome if you could do anything. Even telling me in the comments how much you hate my guts. That would be great too. I'd love to read it. I really would. But thank you for watching. Everyone have a nice Christmas.